insane forever.
Maybe what we need from a conservative standpoint is
The Mark Cox Show.
I respect that. We don't agree.
listen to both sides.
Let's get it on. Is The Mark Cox Show.
ICE said in one operation in Los Angeles, 164 nationals had been arrested and 37 of them were deported to Mexico. But not everyone swept up in these raids is a gang member or drug dealer or otherwise violent criminal. We asked the White House for a guest to discuss these and other matters with us this morning. They did not respond to that request.
You're such a liar. You lie.
Jake Tapper of CNN apparently letting the cat out of the bag that CNN is having a little trouble getting guests from the White House these days. Been accused of fake news. Maybe Cuomo made him mad. Chris Cuomo has hacked him off now. When he said last week that accusing a journalist of fake news is the equivalent of using the N-word. Remember that bite we played last week? Some in the media are becoming a little unhinged over this whole thing. I'm telling you what. But there's no doubt about it that they're all up in arms over this immigration debate. And I've watched this thing over the past couple of weeks because it's part of what we do here. And folks, especially this Guadalupe Garcia. You like how I rolled my tongue there? Guadalupe Garcia. It gives me some added emphasis. So this Guadalupe Garcia case, I'm gonna repeat this again because nobody seems to either notice or care that she was ordered to be deported in 2013. Now, quick, for all of you liberals listening out there, run back and check on Google and find out who was president in 2013. She was busted in 2009. She was convicted later in 2009 of ID theft, and she was ordered to be deported by a judge in 2013. But the Obama administration, who liked to pick and choose which laws it enforced, refused to act on it. And Donald Trump came into office and said, why are we waiting? Why are we not deporting these people? And suddenly she's deported, and it's all Donald Trump's fault, even though the deportation was ordered under Barack Obama. So don't get in arguments with liberals who depend on the Huffington Post and BuzzFeed for their information because they're not going to tell you the truth. So I thought it was interesting that CNN did not get the guests they wanted from the White House to talk about these serious ICE raids that have picked up so dramatically under Donald Trump. Well, no, they haven't. They were happening anyway. There just wasn't, the deportations weren't being enforced by the previous administration. Get it straight. I'll get to some of your phone calls on that. We're going to have some time coming up here at 314-969-9797. Right now, I want to look at an issue that every taxpayer who lives in St. Louis County is going to face a vote on in just about a month and a half. In the 2 months, I should say, in April. You're going to have to vote on Prop P. And the Prop P is the St. Louis County tax, a sales tax, basically, that would fund law enforcement. So on its face, you think to yourself, well, I love law enforcement, and I don't think they get paid enough. For the risk they take every day, compare their salary to your salary. If you had to risk getting shot at every day, would you feel like you were being paid enough? I think that's a fair question. And the people coming out of the St. Louis Police Academy don't necessarily get paid poorly, but 10 years later, they may be making the same amount of money as I understand it. So, of course, the police are in favor of this because it means more money available to them for things like raises. But an interesting thing that's happened here is the St. Louis County Republican Central Committee has now voted to make a recommendation on Prop P. We're joined right now by one of those committee members, Ken Newhouse. Ken, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Clearly, the Central Committee thought this was an important issue to study and to make a recommendation on.
That's correct. I brought up a motion this past Wednesday night at our monthly meeting. It would encourage a no vote by residents of St. Louis County to vote against Prop P. We think that sales tax rates are too high. We put in the motion that although we support our police, we just don't think a sales tax would be the right way to fund them right now.
Would you suggest a different tax, or you're just generally against that idea?
Well, we're just generally against the ideas. I mean, as Republicans, we're pretty much opposed to all tax increases. Of course, we have to find some ways to fund the government. Of course, there has to be taxation in our society to fund our services. But just with sales tax rates in St. Louis County already approaching 10%, and the lowest and middle income earners in the state of Missouri already paying nearly 6% of their annual income in sales tax, it just doesn't seem like the right time and even the right way to do that to fund our police.
Always seems convenient to tack half cent on here or half cent on there, but it's actually pretty shocking to find out, as you mentioned, that tax rate in some places is going to top 10%.
That's true. I mean, if you look at cities like Ferguson, over the last couple of years, we've already known some of the struggles they've had with the police department and just the police around St. Louis County and St. Louis. Their sales tax rate right now is 9.113%. You tack on a CID or a TDD, which is a community improvement district tax, or a transportation district tax. That's another 1% you can add on there. And then plus this half-cent sales tax that, if this is passed, you could see in places like Ferguson a 10.6% sales tax rate. And people just don't have the money right now. Although our economy is improving, it just doesn't seem responsible for our government, even though most of the times our government is not responsible, to be throwing another tax increase at our face right now.
Yeah, our guest is Ken Newhouse from the St. Louis County Republican Central Committee. You know, another thing you brought up in the press release you put out, and a caller, I had Steve Stenger on the show probably a week ago, and he of course mentioned this proposition that was coming up. This is before they had their news conference the other day. But somebody asked me afterwards, what's to keep St. Louis County government from taking some of the revenue streams that they're currently using to fund the police and diverting that money to other uses once this tax gets approved. That was among the concerns of the committee, correct?
It is. We're really not sure if this money, even the $80 million that they're projecting from this, is really actually going to go to public safety. We've had some concerns even from the old police chief who has been on our central committee now for a little while, and he's even raised concerns that some of this money will not go towards public safety or the police if this tax increase is passed. So although we love our police, we love our first responders, it's just not the right time to raise the sales tax, and it's just not even the right way to do this to give our police a pay raise.
Well, personally, I think that we've seen enough evidence of waste in some of these smaller municipalities. I know that some of them are hurting for revenue. I'm not asking for you to comment on this, but I know some of them are hurting for revenue in light of some of the changes made in the municipal courts and what percentage of fines can make up their revenue and this sort of thing. But if this passes, we're going to take a chunk of $46 million and spread it out among all the municipalities in St. Louis County, which means some of those municipalities that don't have a very good track record of how they spend their funds to begin with are suddenly going to be loaded down with a lot of extra cash. I know it's supposed to be used for law enforcement, but I don't know what the guarantees are in there. So that's a concern, definitely.
That's true. You're talking about some of these municipalities. I was reading in the Post-Dispatch story earlier that Chesterfield is concerned that they're only going to receive probably 40% annually of what they're going to collect from the sales tax if it's passed. But even in my city, my hometown of Ellisville, we have 9,200, 9,300 residents, and we have a very great police force who has a great relationship with the community. And I don't know what our elected officials here are going to do with a few extra $100,000 a year with 6 weeks of preparation before this money starts flowing in before this election or after this election. So it's really hard to find where this money is going to be allocated and how they're going to spend it, even if it's going to be spent wisely. We just don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. Ken Newhouse, listen, I appreciate you giving me some time at the last minute.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you having me on today.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time today. So again, the St. Louis County Republican Central Committee has endorsed a no vote on the Prop P on April's ballot. They're concerned about the expense and the fact that, as he mentioned in Ferguson, the local sales tax is going to be about 10.5% if you tack Prop P on top of what's already going on. So it builds up. It certainly does. Let me get to the calls here real quick. Brandon, thank you for the phone call.
Thank you for having me on. I believe that the problem here is that it's just like the previous caller said, but it would be like trying to replenish our leather supply by getting it from the wild buffalo population. That resource is gone. It's depleted. I'm paying 11% sales tax at my local shopping center. And I can't even afford to get my family health insurance. My company can't afford to give it to us either.
Right.
We are too far stretched. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that talks about the problem and then doesn't offer a solution. There's plenty of obvious solutions in there. For instance, in the military and all kinds of government waste, there's these technology programs where there's literally thousands of dollars wasted on programs that have gone nowhere. They burn up tires and other supplies and destroy them so that they can get allotted the same budget for it next year. Instead of doing that, save those hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars, which we elected the Republicans to go do. And when they do that, take even a small percentage of those savings, divvy it up amongst every first responder and enlisted military personnel, and you could probably give them each a couple $1,000s a year, which I guarantee make a very positive difference for them and their families.
Yeah, I agree, Brandon. Thank you, and thanks for the suggestion. I mean, I think it's most people would agree with that. I'd love to see every police officer on the street get a raise. I'd like to know for sure, and maybe we'll get Mark Harder on here to talk about this later this week, what the line items are in the budget in St. Louis County that have been looked at to be cut to provide additional funding for police. Obviously that's a lengthy document, so it's hard to just go online and look at it and try to decide. But I'm sure there have been efforts like that. There have probably been other efforts that have been turned down that would have saved a lot of money for county taxpayers. Paul, thanks for your call.
Yeah, hey, I just wanted to comment on the police issue and the raise. I'm all for the guys working the street. And if you make it a standalone item, maybe I'd consider it. But I think I smell a rat in here. I think this is going to be a slush fund. We're not going to give the mismanagement more money to blow on things. Back the guys in the badge on the street. It's simple. It's not let these good guys use their common sense to get the job done the way they know how, and back them. It's a simple program.
I wonder how you could guarantee that, though, in a county government structure. I mean, if the money goes in, they're going to get raises top to bottom. I'll guarantee you.
Well, exactly. And here we are trying to discuss the management, yet we're blaming the rank and file for something. Wait a minute. Management, just anybody that's not in the management down gets a raise. I would probably back that. The way it stands now, I'm not going to do that. Again, the taxes are high. Like the last caller, block some or trade some programs in that aren't working, that are not effective. Give the guys a raise there. I mean, it's simple.
Paul, thank you.
Have a good one.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, got to get to a quick break. 314-969-9797. You know, it's